Okay, so just very quickly then, before we start, any latecomers, head over to the Menti website and register with the code 4307125, and then you'll be registered with MDX, and then you'll be in a chance of winning all those great prizes that Jake's discussed with you already. Okay, so just before we start today's session, there were a few questions that I had sent over to me at the end of Monday. So I just want to try and answer those as best I can. And then what we'll do, we will make a start continuing on with our Construct 3 Run the Gauntlet game. Now, if you haven't got that, don't worry, I'm going to go through the whole process again very quickly just to make sure that everybody is up to speed. Now, if you look at the bottom of the YouTube window, it tells you how to get onto Construct. It's just construct.net, and there's also some guidance on how to download some resources that we'll be using. But again, don't worry too much if you're not too sure. I will go over that a couple of times throughout the session. Okay, so question that I had, one of the questions that I had on Monday, sorry, am I going to be working on my project with other people or just by myself? So the idea of these sessions is to give you a little bit of a clue as to what Construct 3 can do, and then you go away and have a play around, have a tinker on your own and make a game. But although that might seem quite daunting, as I mentioned on Monday, there's a really good family behind Construct 3, and lots of developers are on there ready to give you some help and support if you need it. Up at the top on my screen there on the Construct 3 main page, you can see the community page. So there's forums, blogs, there's even a free arcade where you can see what other people are making from the Construct community to have a look at to get some ideas. So a really important one there, and I know I still spend lots of time on this section on the how do I bit, asking questions on how to achieve something specific in your games. Lots and lots of support from the forums. So although yes, you will be working on your own, there is lots of support available. The programming language that we're using, now again, I mentioned this on Monday, in terms of the language itself, this is quite specific to Construct. It's a cross between a block-based language like Scratch or Kodu and a text-based language like Python. That's what we're going to be using as beginners, but as you progress through this, you can start programming in Java. You can make your games purely in Java. When will we be making our games? So again, these sessions are designed to give you a little bit of an introduction to Construct 3, and we'll go through the process of making one small game based on something that's been half built, but that is entirely up to you. You can then make your games. You'll have the tools then to go and have a go at making a game yourself. So that is entirely up to you when you make your games outside of these sessions. I'd like to think that as soon as the session's over, you've got enough excitement about what's been done, and you can see what Construct 3 can do for you to get stuck straight in and start making something. Another question that we had was, do we download Construct 3? Now, although you can download Construct 3, it's a web-based online platform. So you can use this from any website, any web-enabled device you can access it from. So if you have a laptop, an iPad, now you can even do it on your phone, but obviously a phone with a smaller screen might not be the most conducive to getting a good game built. If you're anything like me, I have big fat chubby fingers, and when I'm just sending a normal text on a phone, it's bad enough. So when I'm trying to make a game, it'd be almost impossible. But that functionality is there if you want to do something on the go. A more sort of general question really about programming software. Loads of programming software shows the coordinates of the mouse. Now, what it's doing there, it's not exactly showing you the coordinates of the mouse, it's showing you the screen coordinates. And that's really important if you want to incorporate things that appear at a particular place on your screen. Now, if it's a text-based piece of software that you're using, then you might have to type in the exact coordinates of where you want something to appear, as opposed to drag and drop. So that's just a little helpful hint that the developers have included in the software, so you can see exactly the coordinates of any particular place on the screen. We've got a question about construct and connecting to it. Now, that says the connection is not secure. Now that so Construct 3 is a very secure piece of software. Like I said on Monday, this is a piece of software that's used in industry by lots and lots of people. And as it says on the screen there, over 100,000 users monthly making and selling games globally. Okay, so this is a very secure piece of software. If a message does come up on your screen about that, it may be that there is a setting in your antivirus software or your firewall software on your computer that it just doesn't recognize this particular website. Especially if it's the first time you've been on the website, your computer will try and look after you and make sure that you're not going anything that is going to harm your computer, but it is a trustworthy website. Last question about uploading game files into Construct 3. Now, I'm going to go through this process in a moment, but the question says, how can I upload any game file into Construct 3 to edit? Now, unfortunately, it's only games that have been created in Construct 3 that you can have a play around with and edit. Unfortunately, you can't get the latest games, upload them into Construct and then make your own version of them. Unfortunately, it has to be games that have been made in Construct 3. I hope that answers the questions from Monday. If you've got any more questions, please do let me know in the chat, and I will come back to anything at the end of either this session or the end of the session later on today, or indeed I'll do the same again if there's some that come in later, and just spend a few minutes going through those questions. Okay, so on to today's session then. So we're going to continue with our part-based game, the Run the Gauntlet game. Okay, so very quick recap of where we got up to on by the end of Monday. So from the Construct 3 website, we can try it now. Scroll down and launch the free trial straight away. It does load up. If there's any updates or anything that needs to be applied, it will do that then. And then from your window here, we are just going to go to File. Okay, now you should have saved your part-based games so far. Again, the instructions for getting these are on the YouTube website if you haven't, but I've now got a new version because obviously we added something into there. So I've got Run the Gauntlet session 2. So this is my game, where we got up to at the end of session 2. Okay, you should recognize all of the features here on the screen, the different windows, but just very quickly running through those again. Our main window here at the moment is layout 1. So this is your game layout window. Okay, anything that appears on here will be on the game. The dotted line that you can see running along the bottom of the screen there, and if I just scroll sideways, you can see that there. Running down there, that's the size of your game window. Anything that appears outside of that won't appear in the initial window. Now, obviously, if you have a game that's more than one screen long, this is where you will add the rest of your level for your character to move into. Okay, down the right-hand side, we have the project window. This has got everything, every asset or object that's included in our game goes in here. Okay, and then for each of those assets or objects, we have some properties for it which appear over on the left-hand side. When we click on a particular item, those properties change, so they are specifically for that item that we've just clicked on, that object or that asset. Okay, and if you remember last session, we added a few things to this. So I'm just going to quickly just play our game again, just so we can see exactly where we were up to. Okay, so we had our character, the monster. We can only move the monster going right with the right arrow key. So I can use the right arrow key. We'd set it up, if you remember, that we'd set a behavior so that we can't use any other key. So if I press my back arrow, up and down arrow, nothing happens. Okay, we'd also set up the monkey balls so that they moved up and down and bounced off the edge of the screen or an object But at the moment, that was all we had. So we've still got plenty to do in terms of making our game work as we want it to do. Okay, there was something set up. So our end goal of this game is to reach the flag. And you can see that doing that produces the "you win" text. But obviously at the moment, I can just walk there unhurt by any of the monkey balls. And the idea is the next thing we're going to do is going to look at how to add some more functionality to the game so that we have to avoid the enemies and things happen if we don't avoid the enemies. Okay, so we're going to go back to our event sheet. Now, if you remember, the event sheet is where we put in all our rules, all our dynamics of the game. This is where they start. Okay, and each event there is set up in a very similar way. So on this section, it's what's going to happen. And then here is what happens when that happens. So for example, event 3. So when the keyboard right arrow is pressed down, we want the monster to move over to the right. Okay, and that format is the same for all of our events that we add in. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, we're going to add an event that lets our monster avoid the enemy. So we have to avoid the enemy. Something will happen when we collide with the enemies. So as we've done in the previous session, add event. Now this time we're going to add an event to the monster because it's the monster that we're going to be working with. And we want a collision event. Now we want something to happen when we collide with another object. Okay, we've not set up what that object is yet, but we do that on the next page. So we want to say, so when our monster collides with something, something is going to happen. So we're going to click to choose our object. Now, all your game objects will appear there, everything that's been set up in your game. So if you've not set up something, if you wanted another character for the monster to collide with or for something to happen with, you'd have to set that up first before you can set up the rule for it. Okay, but our monkey ball is there. So we can click on the monkey ball and okay. And then we are done for this section. Okay, so I'm just going to go over that again, just to make sure we're all okay with how to add the events. So we add an event. It's going to be on for the monster. And we want the collision event. Now you can scroll through, but as you can see, there's quite a lot there to look at. I always use the search tool. It just speeds things up a little bit. So I know I want something to do with collision. So if I just start typing in the word collision, every condition will come up that's got the word collision in it. So I want the collision with another object, and I want to choose the monkey ball. Oh, there we go. Okay, now I'm just going to cancel that because that will just put another one in, and we've already got one in there. All right, so that is how you add the event. What we want to do now is add an action that's going to be associated with that event. And again, this is very simple, all very click orientated when we do this. Okay, so again, this is we're going to add an action to the monster because we want something to happen to the monster. All right, and this time we want to add a destroy. Basically means kill the monster, game over. Okay, so when our monster collides with a monkey ball, the monster should destroy. All right, I'll very quickly show you what that does. So on the surface of things, nothing is happening. We can still only move right, but now when we hit it, it's destroyed. It just disappears from the game. Okay, but still the game is running and it's not quite, I think, perfect for how we want it. So what we need to do, we're going to add an additional action now. What you can do, obviously, you might want more than one thing to happen once an event has taken place. So in this case, we're going to add another action to show our game over text. Now, our game over text has already been built in. Remember, this is a part built game, and there's some things that are already in the game, and the game over text was one of the things that was already in there. So this action is going to involve doing something with the game over text. And what we want to do here, we want to set it to be visible. Okay, now it's quite misleading that, because it says set visibility. Now, what we want to do, we can alter this. We can have it whether it shows or doesn't show. So in this case, we do want it to be visible. But if we wanted to get rid of something, we can change that to be invisible. Or we might want to be that if something happens once, it goes invisible. If it happens again, it goes visible, and so on, backwards and forwards. In which case, you could toggle whether that, so that would go between both visible and invisible. But for this case, we just want that to be visible. Okay, so we now have two things that are going to happen, two actions when our monster collides with the monkey ball. Quick test of that, and then what I'm going to do is go through that process again, just so you know how to do it. Exactly the same as before. Our game still works as it was, but this time we've added this other feature in now, so we get our game over text. Okay, the balls still move around, but the moment we're not interested in that doesn't matter for right now. The important thing is that the user, the player of the game, knows that if we hit the monkey ball, it's game over. So in a way, this is in a playable state now. Okay, once more, I'm just going to test that for you. And you can see that the game actually works. So if I can avoid all of these things, well, I didn't ask what you get game over. You get the idea. It's much more playable now. Okay, but there's still things we can do to improve the game. So before we get onto that, though, very quickly, I'm just going to go through this process again of getting to this stage. Okay, we're going to add an event on the monster. Okay, it's the collision events that we want, colliding with another object, and then we're going to choose monkey ball. Okay, I'm going to cancel that because it's already there. And then we would add the actions. So first action we want to do is on the monster, and the monster needs to destroy. Again, I'm just going to click cancel there because we've already got that in. But we also want another action on our game over text that's already been created as part of the game, and we want to make that game over text visible. We want to set the visibility to be visible. Okay, so that is one section complete. We are now a little closer, I feel, to getting a really good working version of the game. Okay, if I let's go back to layout 1. Next thing we've also got here, we've got a health bar up at the top. Okay, now the health bar, this is quite tricky to do. This works by having different frames within the health bar. Now let me show you what that means. So our health bar has already been set up. No, sorry, not the text. Our health bar itself. So if you double click on an item, if it's an image, it will open up this editing feature within Construct. It's got quite a nice little graphics editor in there, so you can create your own graphics for your games within the program. You don't need to have access to any additional assets if you want to get straight stuck in and make your own. Obviously, there's plenty of places where you could go to get some additional assets. Royalty-free image websites have lots of assets that you can freely use. Game developers often give out assets for people to use to remix their games, which is in essence what we're doing now. But anyway, on to this. So on the animation editor, now you can see, although it's it's not an animation in the strictest sense, but we do have some similar features to an animation here. We have different frames. So anybody who's used to doing animations are made up of lots of frames that are put together and played one after the other. So it gives the illusion of movement. But in this particular instance, our animation is our 4 different frames showing the 4 different levels of our health bar. So we don't want those to play one after the other, like in an animation. We want those to play or to come into action at a certain time in our game. So when we are on full health, we want this particular frame to play, frame number 3. When we've got a little bit less health, so after 1 hit maybe, we have the 2, and so on with the 1 and the 0. Okay, you'll notice there that we start counting at 0. So instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, we go 0, 1, 2, 3. Now this is an important computer science thing here, because computers, when they work, they always start counting from 0. So if you've done any programming before using arrays or lists, you'll notice that the first item in the list or the first item in the array is always in position 0. So it's really good practice. Obviously, when you are progressing from here, if you were using Java to do your coding, or you went into a different game engine using a different language, that same terminology, that same structure would go through. So having things starting at 0 is just good practice. Okay, so we have frame 0, frame 1, frame 2, and frame 3 in our health bar animation. Okay, to get to that again, you can just double click on here, and then that opens that up. If you wanted to edit and play around with that, you can do here. As you can see, lots of different graphics editing tools there, which I don't want to go too much into at the moment, but those features are there for you to have a play around with later. Okay, so what we're going to do at the moment, we're going to look at now our lives and how a number of lives would link into this health bar. So what we can do, we can set up what's called a variable for our monster. Okay, so a variable is a coding term. It's a value that can change as the program is running. So, for example, in our case, the health of our monster would change as the program is running, depending on how many of the monkey balls that we hit. So we've got this click, so we can see over in our properties window that we've got an instance variable called health already set up, and that's set up to start at 3. That makes sense, doesn't it? When you start a game, you might have 3 lives, 5 lives, 100% health, something like that. We never start with 0 lives. We always have a number of lives, and one of the rules, one of the game mechanics would be to not lose those lives, and for things to happen once those lives start deteriorating. So that's what we're going to be working with. We're going to be looking at the health and how that links into what is shown on the health bar. So the first thing we want to do is to have another game over when our health reaches 0. Okay, not an immediate game over like we've got at the moment, but we want our health to be 0. So we're going to add in another event to make that happen. Okay, and again, I'll go through this a couple of times because this is quite complex. This now we're getting more into the programming side of things now. So we are going to add an event, and again, this is on the monster. And what we want to do is to compare the instance variable. Okay, so if that's equal to 0, we want our game to end. Okay, so we've got the monster, the health equals 0, and then we want to basically we want to have our game over text. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drag this from here and put it in there. Okay, now at the moment, we're not doing anything with that. What we also need to do is to change it so that when our monster is hit, the health gets reduced by 1. So we're starting off at 3, and then we are reducing that health by 1. Otherwise, it will just keep staying at 3, and we'd never reach 0. So we need to add another action in here. Again, on our monster. And we want to subtract from our variable. Okay, so we've got our instance variable, the health, and we want to take 1 off that. Okay, so now what's happening when we click on our monkey ball, when the monster hits the monkey ball, we don't want the monster to destroy, so we can delete that. What we want to happen is for the monster to just have 1 subtracted from its health. Now here, this is where we want, when the health is 0, this is where we want to have our monster destroyed. Okay, and then again, when the health is 0, we will have the game over text come on. Okay, I'm going to quickly show you how that works, and I'll go through that process again with you. Okay, so at the moment, now remember our health bar isn't linked at the moment, so the health bar won't do anything, but we should be able to count. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so now we've got a little bit more energy. It's not just that first hit now that's going to cause game over, it's the 3rd hit. Okay, so like I said, that's quite a tricky process, that. So I want to just spend a little bit of time going back through this with you. So let me just get back to where we were. So the way the game ended originally was when we hit the monkey ball, the monster gets destroyed, and we have the game over comes on. Okay, what we want to do is change that up a little bit now. Okay, we want to make it a bit more realistic in terms of game dynamics overall. Okay, so the first thing we do, we set up our another event for what happens if our health equals 0. Remember that our health is initially set up to be 3. That's already been set up for us. Our variable for health has been set up to 3. Okay, if you were setting up a new character, you would have to create a variable for it, and that is just done in the properties window there. You can just create an instance variable. That's quite easy to do. Okay, so our monster health is 0. Now we want something to happen. Okay, now it's at this point that we really want these 2 things to happen. So because they're already there, I can just click and drag those 2 down. I could click on add action and create those if I wanted to, but they were already there. So again, just to save a little bit of time, I can just drag those down. Okay, so now on the collision with the monkey ball, this is where we want a different action now. It's still associated with the monster, and it's the variable. Okay, now we're not adding to it, we're not giving it health. You may, for example, have some collectible items. You might have some food in your game levels that add to your health, that give you health. So in which case you could have a different, if you collected a energy drink or something like that, it would add to the value. So you can go both ways with the variables. You don't always have to subtract, but in this case we want to subtract. Okay, if we had more than one variable associated with our monster, it would appear on that list, but we've only got 1, so it's the health, and the value that we want to subtract is 1. You may have in a game where you start off with health 100, and it could be that hitting a monkey ball loses half your health, so that value would change to 50, whereas other items might not be so dangerous. So if you stand on a twig, for example, that might reduce your health by 10. So again, you can change those values there. But just for simplicity, we've got 3 lives and we want to lose a life every time we hit a monkey ball. Okay, so that now should, as I showed earlier, this will now give our 3 lives. So I'll just stand there, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and we get the game over. It makes our game a little bit easier now, obviously because we have more lives, but also a little bit more realistic, and the same as how other games may well run in the real world, which, you know, do give you a little bit of a chance by letting you have more than 1 attempt. Obviously, if you wanted to ramp up your difficulty, you could just set that health to be 1. And if you only wanted 1 life, there are certain games, aren't there, out there that do only have 1 life. Okay, so that's setting the health. So now what we want to do, we now want to look at lowering the bar. We want to look now to get that graphic in the game as well. Games are obviously quite visual in terms of the stimulus, so you wouldn't expect your gamer necessarily just to remember how many lives they've got as they're going through a game. Most games, where they're life-based or health-based, would have this health bar or number of lives left to give you that reminder as you're going through the game. So that's what we want to set up next in our game. Okay, so this is another action that we are going to include in our game. Okay, so we want to add sorry, no, this is, they say it's something that we want to add in on the collision with the monkey ball. Okay, so we want to add an action. Now this time it's on our health bar. Okay, something's going to happen to our health bar. So if you remember, we've got different animation frames on our health bar. So I want to do something with the animation. Now, it's not the animation itself that we want to set, it's the frame that we want to set. If you remember, we've got 4 frames in our health bar animation for the different levels of health that we have. Okay, so we just want to set the frame. Okay, now what we want to do now, we don't want to set it to a particular frame. We want it to look up, we want this now to be related to how much health we have left. Okay, so we want to look at the monster and the health variable for the monster. So what we can do now, we can call on our monster element. And if we put a full stop in, then we've got access now to everything that's included with the monster. So if we start typing in health, okay, so what that means is that frame number will be the same as the monster's health. So remember, we start off with 3, and our first frame was 3. And then if we lose a life, 2, 1 to 0. Okay, again, what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you what that looks like, and then I will talk you through that process again. I know there's an awful lot to take in today, but you can rewatch this video at any time, pause it at various points, and have a go yourself whilst it's paused. And equally, if you've got any questions, please do ask them in the chat, and I will make sure that I answer them either towards the end of today's session or on Friday.
Hi, Mark.
Okay. Hi.
Just on that, there's a couple of people saying that they're following everything. It's just when you press play to show the demo of the game, it's just still got the event sheet up, so they can't actually see the demo of
right. Okay. I wonder if that's a Zoom thing. That's not. It's picking it up as another window, possibly in Zoom. Okay. Right. Okay. Just let me. I will click on play now.
Yeah.
what I will do, I will. Okay, I'm going to stop. So I'll just stop sharing that screen to see if I can share my game screen. Okay, thank you for that, Jake. I wasn't. Now, is that now sharing?
Yes, that's it. There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Right, I do apologise for that. That's I thought Zoom would pick up the other screen. Right. Right. That must be quite confusing for some people. There. I'm sorry. Right. Okay. Then. So we've got our game screen on now, anyway. And what we've just set up, I can now show you. So I can now. Again, just use my back arrow doesn't work, down arrow, up arrow doesn't work. But now what should happen? Okay, so our health bar also goes down now with that, and we have game over.
Brilliant, thank you. That makes much more sense. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, right. So I'm just going to come back out and go back then into the run the gauntlet screen. Okay, right. So yeah, so back into that then. So what I want to do there, I'll go through that section again, because that's probably the trickiest bit, that because we're linking a couple of things together now to get the health bar working. Okay, so we want to add in something so our health bar moves when we lose a life. Okay, so if you remember from the health bar, we have 4 frames of animation: a full health bar, a slightly reduced again, and 0. Hopefully that window's coming up. Is the animation, Jake? Can you possibly tell me, is the animation editor screen?
Yeah, we can see that. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. Again, I wasn't sure because this is another window opening up, so thank you for that.
No worries at all.
Yeah, so that's how that works. So that is that. And what we're going to do, we're going to link the health of our monster 3, 2, 1, 0. So it shows that frame when it's that level of health. And it is fairly straightforward to do, but it's just because it's something new, I just want to spend a little bit of time, like I say, going over it. So again, this all happens when our monster collides with the monkey ball, and we just want a new action now. Okay, so again, this is on the this is for the health bar. We want something to happen to the health bar, and what we want to do, we want to set the animation frame. And again, now what we're going to do, this is where we link it to our monster. Okay, so if we start typing the name of our object, monster, I can just continue typing it, or I can just double click to get to that. A full stop, that then allows us to get access to all the properties that are associated with the monster and its health that I want to link it to. Okay, so we take one off the health, and we also set the health animation frame to be whatever that number is, whatever that health number is for monster. Okay, and that all happens when we collide with the monkey ball. Okay, I'm going to just run that again, and then I will just share that screen with you. Okay, so hopefully again you can see my game there, and we now have a pretty much complete game. Okay, I go forward. Okay, I've been hit once, so that goes down, and then you can see it does it. I'm going to try that again to see if I can win the game. Okay. So hopefully it should still be sharing. So, I can now try my hardest. Nope, I'm not very good at this game, but you get the idea. Okay, we've now got a more complete game, and it's quite a good looking game now. It's got all the elements that we need. It tells us how much health we have left. We've got the danger, the enemies that we have to avoid, and we have a goal to get to finish the level. Okay, that really is over to you now. Okay, this is your turn now to have a look at this and to run with this even further. There's so much more, I would imagine, that you could do with just that game. Okay, at the moment, game over, we have things still moving around. Do you want things to stop completely when game over? Do you want to get rid of those? Do you want to have a different game over screen? Do you want to add other obstacles in? Could you put more solids in that they have to jump over? Could you reintroduce that jump element that we took out at the start because we just wanted moving forward? There's a lot that you can do with just this. Okay, so what I want to do very quickly before this session finishes is just to jump back to the main window. First thing I want to do now is to save this. So menu, project, save as, download a copy. Okay, and I'm just going to call this Run the Gauntlet Session 3. Okay, now that will save into my downloads folder. As you can see there, that's downloaded. I will then go and move that into my my working folder for these sessions. Okay, something else that I just want to show you then before we finish is where to go to get these from. Okay, now I know I did show this on Monday, but I think people were still not too sure. So although this is on the bottom of the YouTube channel, I just want to go through this. Okay, so you go to resources from the Digital Schoolhouse website, and we want to go on to workshops, algorithms and programming. These are all in alphabetical order, so we just want to scroll down to part-based games and scroll down a little further and then access all files here. Okay, now there is a version of the PowerPoint presentation that I've used with you as well on this. So that's here available for you if you want to use that. The game files are in this folder. So there's also some other games there, so you can have a look at those as well if you want to. Okay, there's a Capture the Pigs game and Release the Monsters, as well as Run the Gauntlet and Pipes. Okay, so some other half-finished games for you to have a look at. I think that's quite a good way to get into things, to have a look at something, as opposed to starting from scratch, where when you're faced with a blank screen, it can be quite daunting. If you start with something that's part built for you, it's a good way of attacking the process. And also you can get to have a look at how some behaviors are set up on some of those objects and some of those assets that are already in those games, just to give you an idea. There is no right and wrong way of finishing those games either. Okay, the limit is your imagination and making sure that you are happy with the game. What we're going to be looking at in the sessions later is a little bit more on prototyping games and how the design process starts and where that leads to. And one of the things that we're going to look at is what's called the development lifecycle, which basically looks at the whole process from start to end. But once you get to the end, once you have a finished game, or a part finished game in this case, that's not the end. You go back and you look at other things as well, and you want to change things up and make alterations to it. A lot of games developers Even once a game is finished, they're still adding things to it. They're still tweaking things. Lots of games get new updates, things, to make the gameplay better, to add new functionality to the game, to fix bugs maybe. But that whole process still continues even after a game has been released. That there's no end really in terms of how a game goes, which I'm sure that some of you have seen on consoles and PC games, that there's forever been things released, patches, updates, new levels, that kind of thing. So that leads me nicely then into the prototyping session. If you haven't already got these, I would recommend over the break. It's an unplugged activity for the next 2 sessions. So you don't need a computer, but it might be an idea if you have some pen and paper, or if you have access to a computer and a printer. We can just go to now these are in Part Baked Games Chef's Edition. So again, from the same place there, and there are some worksheets. So DSH worksheets, Part Baked Games, Chef's Edition. Okay, if you can get access to those, wonderful. If not, just access to pen and paper would be really useful for the next session, please. And that just takes us nice up to 11 o'clock. So I'm going to hand back over to Jake now. Thank you.
Brilliant.